So, if you've ever felt that familiar knot in your stomach right before you have to speak in front of a crowd, yeah, we've all been there, and you're absolutely in the right place. Today, in this explainer, we're diving deep into the absolute necessity of structured practice. We're going to talk about how to transform those pre-presentation jitters into absolute, unshakable readiness. It's kind of like building a house. You need a solid foundation. So we'll unpack the actual mechanics of mastering the rehearsal to ensure a flawless delivery. We'll be looking really closely at how to build up those vital presentation skills from scratch, so you can walk into literally any room with total confidence.
But hey, before we get deep into the mechanics of preparation, I want us to just pause for a second. Let's take a collective breath and look at this incredibly reassuring universal truth from our source material. No one is perfect, right? It is entirely natural to experience presentation anxiety, to maybe stumble over a word, or to feel like you just aren't a naturally gifted orator. And honestly, it's the perfect place for us to start because it totally empathizes with that underlying vulnerability we all feel. By acknowledging right off the bat that perfection just isn't a human baseline, we remove that impossible, crushing pressure we tend to put on ourselves. It's such a grounded way to approach public speaking. You aren't perfect? I'm definitely not perfect. And you know what? That is absolutely fine.
Okay, let's dive into this next part though, because while we can totally acknowledge our imperfections, we don't exactly get a free pass. The reality of high-stakes environments? Yeah, it's non-negotiable. In any important event, we must always be well prepared. That is the gold standard. When the stakes are super high, maybe it's a critical client pitch or a massive team update, we literally cannot just wing it and hope our natural charisma carries us through. No way. The pressure of those big moments actually amplifies our flaws. So while imperfection is an accepted baseline, being unprepared, that is not an acceptable strategy. When the moment really matters, preparation is the mandatory bridge between our natural, everyday imperfections and a truly successful outcome.
And this creates a pretty stark contrast between vulnerability and security. On one side of the coin, we have our natural, imperfect state. If we rely solely on that, well, we leave ourselves completely exposed. That's exactly when the brain fog rolls in, or when nervous rambling completely takes over, right in the middle of your most crucial point. But on the flip side, we have the absolute mandate for preparation. Preparation acts like a literal shield against those natural flaws. We just can't afford to stay in that totally vulnerable state when stepping into a demanding environment. We have to actively choose the security that comes from being rigorously prepared.
And this brilliantly illustrates something key. Part of that rigorous preparation actually means widening our view of what needs to be practiced in the first place. We need to rehearse any conversation before presenting in public. Notice how this doesn't just apply to the big, flashy speech. Rehearsal isn't just for the main stage with the spotlight and a microphone. It's actually required for all those everyday interactions leading up to the event. Think about networking in the lobby before things even begin, or maybe answering a really tough, unexpected question from a critical stakeholder. Rehearsing these smaller, foundational conversations, that builds the essential muscle memory required to keep you totally steady during the actual public presentation.
So when we put this all together, it creates a complete, step-by-step roadmap for success, evolving both psychologically and practically. Step 1 is simply stripping away the ego and that paralyzing fear by acknowledging, hey, we aren't perfect. Step 2 widens our scope, recognizing that we need to prepare for all interactions, not just the keynote address. And that brings us to Step 3, the ultimate action, actually conducting that rehearsal effectively. See how that flows? You're moving step by step from a baseline of totally natural anxiety right into a state of highly structured, purposeful preparation. Now, the ultimate goal of this explainer isn't just to tell you to practice. I mean, anyone can tell you to practice, right? The real value is in mastering the exact specific abilities needed to conduct that rehearsal effectively. So what does that actually look like in detail? Well, it means timing yourself to ensure your pacing actually aligns with your allotted slot. It involves recording a video of your run-through to spot distracting physical tics or maybe filler words you didn't even realize you were using. It's about practicing out loud, maybe even in front of a mirror, to ensure your transitions from one point to the next feel totally natural rather than forced. It is really all about turning rehearsal from this vague, fuzzy concept into a highly targeted, actionable skill set.
Which brings us to one incredibly important question for you to consider. Are you ready to effectively rehearse for your next important event? Knowing that no one is perfect, and knowing that high stakes absolutely demand preparation, it is time to take these concepts and actually apply them. Think about the very next time you have to step up and speak. Are you going to rely on your natural flaws and risk that dreaded brain fog, or will you actively pick up these skills, timing yourself, recording your run-throughs, and practicing those really tough Q&A conversations to conduct a highly effective rehearsal? The choice, and honestly the success of your next presentation, is entirely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this explainer, and I really hope this empowers you to totally master your next rehearsal.